This is the LD Sewell podcast, and welcome to episode 96. This episode, we want to talk a little bit about independent contractor agreements. A lot of folks are looking at and considering getting into. Just a few days ago, I was talking to a individual who is no longer driving, and one of the reasons that he left driving and took another type job was he had gotten into an independent contractor program as soon as he got into trucking. He went to a large carrier, mega carrier, and they sold him on it, pressured him into it, and he, not knowing any better, he jumped in, embraced it, thought he was doing the right thing, thought he was going to make all this money, and at times he wound up making nothing at all, wound up actually owing money, even having worked an entire week. And that's not an uncommon thing to hear. I've been looking at independent contractor programs for years upon years, and the vast majority of them are not in the best interest of the driver. And my advice is beware. Be very wary of any independent contractor agreement or lease purchase agreement or anything of that nature, especially if you're brand new to trucking. And in my personal opinion, now it's your life, you do whatever you want to do, but in my personal opinion, it's not in your best interest when you're trying to figure out trucking, you're trying to learn how to drive the truck, get your skills down, learn how to trip plan, learn how everything works, make a living, pay your bills, take care of your family, do all the different things that you need to do. And at the same time, you're going to bite off on the responsibility of some kind of, lease purchase type program. And most of those things are set up from the get-go to where it's going to be very hard for you to win in that program. Now, is it possible? It is. With some programs, there are a few companies, a very few, that have fair programs, but they're still not easy. They're very difficult. And what you got to understand is that it's going to take an awful lot of time and effort on your part to make it work. And if you have responsibilities at home, you've got family there, you've got house payment or rent, you've got car payments, credit card bills due, and utilities and all the other things, and you're trying to do the independent contractor thing, chances are more likely than not it's not going to end well for you. And it's just something you have to be extremely cautious about. Now, if you're single, if you have no obligations whatsoever, you don't have to have an apartment, you don't need a car, you don't need anything but your cell phone, your toothbrush, toothpaste, and some food, and you can get all that stuff at Walmart, and you want to live in that truck, you can certainly make it work. Now, it's debatable still whether that might be your best course of action or not, because even in that case, if something happens before you complete the lease term, then all your investment is wasted. It's gone. You don't get it back. If you leave the company voluntarily or involuntarily, they get rid of you, or you decide to leave it for some reason before you complete that, then everything that you put into it is just gone. If you were to go start as a company driver, on the other hand, learn the business, take as much money as you could and set that aside into your own savings account or a safe in your closet, your house, wherever you want to put it, and set that money aside. Then if at any point in time you left employment with that motor carrier, you still have every dollar of your investment. And it takes discipline to do that. But see, here's the other reality. If you don't have some self-discipline and some self-control, you're not likely to survive long as an owner-operator anyway. So that's something to be aware of. Be very wary and be very cautious of any kind of independent contractor agreement, and especially if you're brand new to trucking, if you're just going into your first motor carrier, your first trucking company, getting your first job, I really advise against that. Or unless you are absolutely certain that you know what you're doing, it's most likely not going to be the right course of action for you. And even if you think it's going to be the right thing for you, do at least 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, at least a few months. And get some time in with that carrier, see what you're actually making as a company driver without that added headache of having that lease purchase thing hanging over your head. And you can do your own research on the internet, but multiple motor carriers have been sued over the years over these things because the deck has been stacked against the driver, yet the motor carrier still exerts almost the same control over you, in some cases even pretty much exactly the same control as they do over their company drivers. You can't haul freight for another motor carrier in most cases. You can't take the truck and leave the company. Your name is not on the title, so you have no ownership interest in it. And even down to cost and chargebacks and escrow funds and emergency reserve funds. There have just been all sorts of problems that have gotten various motor carriers in a lot of trouble. I mean, you can research that for yourself. Put that in your favorite search engine and pull up, trucking company sued over lease purchase agreement, and you see what that pulls up, and do some homework, do some research. Certainly before you dive in, if you are still, strongly desiring to enter into one of these things, take the time to talk to some of the other drivers at that company that are already doing it, and it's not somebody that's still excited that just signed the paperwork and the ink's not even dry on it, last week or even last month. Certainly not yesterday. But talk to somebody who's been doing it for, at least several months, the better part of a year or longer, and find out what their actual numbers are. Ask them. Some of them won't tell you, but most of them will if you ask them, right? And, get that feedback and get that information so that you can make an informed decision. But the hard, cold truth, and people don't want to hear this, and that's the nature of the game. It's a lot easier to tell you just what you want to hear than what you need to hear. But the hard, cold truth is most people in most of these programs make less money than entry-level company drivers make. You're far better off in most cases just to start out as a company driver, learn the business, get some experience, do your research, and then figure out what to do from there. And ideally, if you want to become a owner-operator, either go out and finance your own truck. If you listen to anything else I talk about, not a huge fan of financing stuff at all. I don't like debt of any type, but if you're going to finance something, you can finance a truck. However, there's a right way and a wrong way to do that too. So don't go out and finance a brand new truck and pay $100,000+ for it. That's not necessary. And you need to learn the value of trucks before you go out and buy any kind of a truck. A better idea is to set your money aside for a year or two. Work extremely hard. There's other things that I can tell you about that you can do to increase your income. Take that money, set it aside, save your cash up, and then go and buy your truck and pay for it outright. And then lease on to whatever carrier you want to lease on. And then you are truly an owner-operator with a paid-for truck and a whole lot less stress and headaches hanging over your head. That'll do it for this one. I'll talk to you again soon in the next one.